solidified and embedded inside the solid core of a planet or something, a star. It wouldn't be like that. But we're actually at the wrong angle because of our tilt, the 23.5 degree-ish pole shift that we have of our magnetic north, its relation to the sun's natural north. All of those things are out of whack with what is organic, and it throws off the gate alignments between Earth and Eartha. Now, this is what we have spanner gates for. But anyway, this whole history here that brings us up to the conquests for Eartha. You had these groups that were working with the Borgia that collectively ended up calling themselves as the Red Dragon Team. This had to do with the dragon races that we covered back in Shasta. That was May of what? 2006? Yeah, right. Back in Shasta, they introduced the dragon races and how they were formed over in the Wisa matrix by this combining with that and this trying to help. And it's another one of those lines. But the Red Dragon Team implies a Borgia affiliation, also Borgia Budhara affiliation, also Wisa Drak affiliation. The Wisa Deks tend to stand against them. The Anu tend to stand against them. The Red Dragons, a long time ago, went Anu hunting, where they blamed the Metatron crew for everything that happened in the universe, and they were going to exterminate them. So they ended up with Green Dragons, which were dragon race lines that were coming from the Wisa line, and that were Anu friendly, and the Red Dragons that were Anu exterminators. So this was one of their little dramas going on, and still is. So when we talk about contemporary Red Dragon and Green Dragon agendas, they are both still here. The representatives are on planet, and they're also in the hibernation zones. And right now our politics are being very, very motivated by them, as well as a lot of other things on this planet. So you have ones in each camp. Okay, so here we had 10,500 BC, Luciferian conquest for Eartha. They were trying to get through the gates from Earth to take over Eartha, the star. All right, didn't work. Let's see, seeding 3. Here we have where the Eartha races part of which are from the AQUAREION matrix. They had crossed over through the hubs and come up to Eartha in order to assist directly here. Because the angelic human Tauraneusiam race was actually biologically based on the prototype of the original AQUAREION race lines and the type of forms that they had there. That form was used as a prototype when they were creating the races over here in the seedings of this system ages ago, 950 billion years ago. So there was a similarity. This is why they got involved directly. There was a genetic similarity where they would be compatible enough with our systems to bioregenerate the codes that we had, the system, our natural organic template here. There were several things done. In seeding 1 of angelic humans, which was wiped out 5.5 million years ago by the electric wars, there was various things done in seeding 2 to help the angelic humans, which was wiped out, I forget, through the 1,000 Years' War, something or other, 3 million years ago, something like that. And we are of seeding 3, and we are also assisted by bioregenesis hybridization. And this was 12,500 BC. We had what were called a Navajo Aquafarian race line was brought in. These were 3-way conceptions, actually. They would bring a couple, a volunteer couple of angelic humans or angelic indigos from here, invite them to a midway zone. And that midway zone was the slide 3 field, the Aquafarian area, because it was high enough in frequency for them to come down without getting ill from the frequencies down here, but it was low enough in frequency that if you worked with activating certain things in the angelic human DNA, you could bring an angelic human up that far. So they created these 3-way conceptions, not by 3 people having sex together, but by 2 natural mates coming together here that were of the angelic human race, inviting them there, and then doing an energetic infusion during a certain point in conception where it was just energy transferred, and it gave the Aquafarian imprint to the new gene line. And the first line of them were raised there and stayed there. Their children were brought here and then mixed in among the angelic human lines. That's how we have AQUAREION line humans and AQUAREION line cloister indigo races, where it is the AQUAREION lines that held the commission of the Aquarian host to participate in the Aquarian host in the event that things went the way they have on this planet. And it is we who have the codes that, as far as things that can biologies that can regenerate more quickly than anything else, the AQUAREION codes are the ones who can do that, because they have the codes of the three matrices to some degree, not all of the codes of all three matrices, but you would have parts of the AQUAREION matrix, parts of the Wisa-Ley matrix, the Christic level of the Wisa matrix, and ones from this matrix altogether. So it would allow you greater gate access. It would also allow you to have the power to clear the mutation that was done here. And if the mutation is cleared to a certain degree by the AQUAREION shield of the AQUARIOhumans, it will begin to trigger the same thing in the angelic humans. And that will begin to trigger the same thing in certain animal forms. So it will be like a healing that spreads outward. And it came from these interventions here. 12,500 BC was one line of them. These ones, the ones that are called the Navajo, they actually carried the full gate codes of the seeding 2 AQUAREION. From our angelic human seeding 2 that was wiped out during the 1,000 Years' Wars on Earth, there was a group of them that were hybridized there. Some of them got out during the 1,000 Years' War and were taken to other planets. But they have a full set of gate codes for what are called the spanner gates. The spanner gates are gates, natural gate structures that open between Earth and Eartha, the star that we are hosting in. And they are the natural ascension chambers here, but not everything. In fact, the angelic human third seeding did not have the codes for full passage through the spanner gates. They had what were called the Astura codes, which is a smaller set of chambers that open in, they're still natural chambers, but they open within the larger Navajo gates. So the Navajo spanner gates, the ones who can use those directly would be the ones that carry the seeding 2 codes. The seeding 2 codes were brought back into seeding 3 through the 12,500 BC bioregenesis hybridization that was done here. So some people are Navajo AQUAREION humans or indigos. Some are from this lot that were from 11,500 BC. These ones just carry the seeding 3 codes of the Astura passage. And another lot of them brought in at 10,000 BC. This is the Earth AQUAREION human 12 strands. So you had the cloisters brought in here, where they hybridized with our cloister indigo races in 11,500, and then in 10,000 BC they hybridized with the angelic humans. So each of the races here would get a chance to bioregenerate, because we were being so trashed genetically by the raiding of the Leviathan force, the Leviathan races that were progressively being brought into our gene lines here. That story's in the Voyagers Volume 2 book. That we weren't going to have any ascension codes to run our own stargates even left in our own bodies, and that's why they intervened and offered certain groups of us the opportunity to do that. Some of us incarnated from there and directly, and actually had started there and have a different history than ones who came here from Terra directly. So there's a whole different, just because people all live in the same masks of a species, which appears to be the same species on a planet, doesn't mean they're all from the same place or even the same type consciousness. We're all wearing masks down here. It's called the Homo sapien sapien mask, and the mask itself is a mutation. None of us really look like this, and it was an orchestrated mutation. And progressively, one thing the Homo sapien sapien doesn't do is function like a breatharian. Angelic humans were breatharians, which means they could do solar symbiosis and hydrolase conversion, which means they didn't have to eat things in order to survive. Think about black holes that have to eat in order to survive. Well, it's almost like we became walking black holes with this mutation, Homo sapien sapien mutation. And we're in the process of healing that, where we can begin to generate our own natural energy food. And it's not just air that breatharians breathe, it's light, electromagnetic frequency. They breathe sunlight, they can breathe reflected light. It's all about the interaction of solar light. UV light in particular is very useful. They're kind of like plants, but not green, right? With the photosynthesis. It's a similar process to photosynthesis that our blood is supposed to be able to do. Anyway, this is where we got the capacity to do the bioregenesis we're moving into now during that period of time. Then after this, we had the 9562 BC. It was called the Great Encasement. This is where the Borgia take Urta 14 and Ruta 15, the core gates here, and they took part of Shala 13. They took conquest over it. They reversed the shields, and they plugged the gates into the Borgia time triangulation to create the hibernation zones. They make the Beli Mahatma forced hybrid line with captured AQUAREION humans of Eartha. The Eartha AQUAREION humans, the ones who had stayed up there, those first generation ones, came down to help when the Borgia came in, and they captured a bunch of them, and they used the DNA to create what are called the Beli Mahatma. These are the pretty blonde things that walk around with very cold blue eyes that you'll sometimes see floating around your backyard. It's like you can see them sometimes and then they're not there. And the Beli Mahatma are not friendly. They make shark's eyes look warm and comforting. But they're extremely pretty and very intelligent and very articulate and very rarely raise their voices. But if they breathe on you, you'll see their teeth. And they're not very pretty. Right, yeah, not quite as bad as the Alien movies, but the intention is there. The hibernation zones have to do with, if you in simple terms to understand a hibernation zone, if you think that of the structure that we know as our atmosphere and our planet, and let's say that's made up of various interfacing energy planes that create those spheres that forms the spherical reality of our three-dimensional reality domain that is our planet. If you take part of the natural light fields in some of those planes and shift them to the opposite spin and polarity, it will create a version of what is in the natural field. If you have a tree standing here in its natural form, and you split that reality field, you will get a smaller version of that tree in both. The hibernation zones are reverse spin zones that were created on purpose during this period of time, 9562 BC, by using the technologies they've been progressively, the Borgia and the Thetans have been progressively bringing here. These are part of the threshold technologies, and they are literally living zones. This is where Atlantis fell to. It more like rose than fell, because it was literally shifted out of here. There are scars left in certain places in the ocean floor where certain things once were and aren't any longer because they were literally shifted out of here. It leaves burn marks. It leaves fissures sometimes when things, large pieces of land, are removed from a place by unnatural technologies like this. So Atlantis is actually alive and well. That's where all the Zeta ships are, not where they're from originally, but it's where they're bunking. And there's a bunch of very unfriendly people who control that place, most of which look like we do. Because they are versions, well, their biologies are versions of us. Imagine yourself, somebody cloned your body and then took it over. Didn't have you in it anymore, right? Or, if you were unfortunate enough, maybe it did have a piece of you in it anymore and didn't realize it was being used. There are versions and parts of our own energy that we will be healing and bringing back when we begin the healing processes, because it implies that if we are here on this planet, and this planet has hibernation zones, the split field zones, there is a part of us in the split. And we need to reclaim that part of us. It's different than a shadow self. We talked about shadow selves with Phantom Matrix, which was a bit different, way back during the Hitharo period, 2003. But this is the final mess that our fields are in, and is reclaiming the portions of our own energy that are stuck in the hibernation zones. This has to do with clearing the epigenetic overlay, and the things that we will be beginning the process of in, as this workshop progresses. So this is where they were formed, 9562 BC. They are relatively recent compared to the rest of that history. This mess is a relatively recent mess. This is part of the Atlantean mess. And right after they were formed, you had 9558 BC.